the infrastructure wiped out. This was the real deal in terms of epic catastrophes.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're taking a look at 10 of the worst natural disasters of the 2010s.
The biggest problems are heat stroke and dehydration.
The earthquake has extinguished entire neighborhoods.
Others watch helplessly as their properties are razed to the ground.
For this list, we're looking at the most devastating and deadly storms, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, mudslides, heat waves, and other natural phenomena the planet experienced from 2010 to 2019. Let us know in the comments which of these events you'll always remember. Number 10. The 2019 Australian Wildfires.
The fires aren't just in one location, they're raging everywhere.
From late 2019 onward, bushfires raged across Australia during the country's dry summer months. Australia regularly sees fires, but the 2019-2020 fire season quickly became the worst fire outbreak in decades.
As the fires head south, the warnings are ominous for a dangerous summer ahead.
A huge drought made the conditions perfect for deadly and damaging fires to start, causing unprecedented destruction. The total bill to repair the damage is expected to be billions of dollars, with thousands of homes and other buildings destroyed, along with over 46 million acres of land.
It's like fireballs in the air that explode.
But all that pales in comparison to the people who lost their lives, with a death toll close to 500, as well as the effect the fires will have had on Australia's famous and endangered wildlife.
Reports that as much as half of the island's koala population has been wiped out.
Number 9. Typhoon Bopha. One of the most powerful tropical storms to ever hit the Philippines, Typhoon Bopha was unusual for a number of reasons. First, it was incredibly close to the equator, where typhoons don't usually form. Second, it headed straight for the island of Mindanao, which does not see such powerful storms very often at all.
It knocked out power in 2 provinces and wrecked hundreds of homes. While the government warned its people to take preventative measures, officials accept that message didn't get through to many people in the more isolated areas.
In spite of this, the Filipino government was able to evacuate hundreds of thousands of people to safety. But Bopha still claimed roughly 1,900 lives. It ravaged the Philippines with wind speeds of 175 miles per hour in December 2012, destroying buildings, leaving thousands more homeless, and causing $1.1 billion of damage.
While some start to rebuild their lives or clean up the few belongings they managed to save, others are just glad to be alive.
Number 8. The 2015 Indian heatwave. Though India is a hot country year-round, the 2015 heatwave became an unprecedented disaster, leading to the deaths of 2,500 people across the nation.
It is too hot. It's even tough to accept that there is so much heat.
The hot temperatures felt across the country were between 110 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the Sahara Desert.
It's not just the heat during the day that's dangerous, it's the heat at night as well. It doesn't really ebb away at all.
Many of the deaths were caused by sunstroke and dehydration. The reason the heat wave was so lethal was that electricity demand for air conditioning couldn't be met, causing power outages, as well as the fact that many people were forced to continue working.
I'm a cleaner, says this woman. I have to look after my children, get food for the family. I have no option but to work in this heat.
There was no respite from the heat until the late-coming monsoon rain arrived in June. A similar but unrelated heat wave also struck Pakistan that same year, causing a further 1,100 deaths.
My parents are suffering, my kids are suffering, but nobody cares. What can we do? We are already sick of it.
Number 7. Hurricane Maria.
Roofs peeled from buildings, debris flying. Structures collapsing. Up to 30 inches of rain in some areas, engulfing whole neighborhoods.
One of 2017's deadliest storms, Hurricane Maria caused over 3,000 deaths, with most of the destruction hitting Puerto Rico and other parts of the Caribbean, coming just weeks after Hurricane Irma.
Winds up to 160 miles per hour and intense rains already causing flooding, thrashing waters in the neighboring island of Martinique, leaving boats there bobbing violently in the seas.
With 2,975 deaths in Puerto Rico alone, Maria was the deadliest storm to hit the island in over a century. Puerto Rico's recovery was made even harder by federal aid from the U.S. coming slowly. with many relief charities and Puerto Rico's elected officials harshly criticizing the response.
95% of the country is still without electricity, and there are shortages of almost every necessity.
It took a year after Maria for the death toll to be finalized, and with damages of $91 billion, it's one of the most expensive Atlantic hurricanes in history.
There's a lot of love in this room.
Yeah, and it's not coming from him. There's a lot of disrespect coming from him. The president was disregarding our lives. People were dying.
Number 6, the 2018 Sulawesi earthquake and tsunami.
There is a particular cruelty to this geophysical onslaught.
In 2018, a shallow earthquake on the Indonesian island Sulawesi quickly became the deadliest earthquake of that year, causing more than 4,300 fatalities. The biggest earthquake had a magnitude of 7.5, but it had a few nasty foreshocks, all with magnitudes higher than 5, and some aftershocks as well.
To understand the sheer force that was unleashed, you just have to look at that building up there, because that previously wasn't here, but some 100 meters down in that direction, and it was swept here by the moving soil.
But the earthquake triggered not only a devastating tsunami, but also some fast-moving and dangerous mudslides that were some of the worst in history.
It is not a healthy environment at all, and yet these people are having to go through this because this is a part of the world that does not have the kind of infrastructure that can stand up, let alone to an earthquake, but put a tsunami on top of that. They can't do that, and this is the result of that.
The tsunami itself reached over 20 feet tall at its highest point and destroyed many towns and cities. More than 200,000 people were made disaster refugees, and over 600 remain missing.
Officials say hundreds of people are believed to be trapped in mud after the quake caused the ground to heave up and sink down in some places. People have also been trapped under destroyed homes, hotels, and a shopping mall.
Number 5, Typhoon Haiyan.
This is probably one of the top 12, so the top dozen of all storms ever seen on this planet with a satellite-oriented person. That's how big this is.
This Category 5 super typhoon hit the Philippines only 11 months after Typhoon Bopha, but also did catastrophic damage to other parts of Asia like Vietnam and Palau.
Haiyan's fury hit land hours earlier than expected, dragging surging waves onshore, leaving death and desperation everywhere.
It was one of the most powerful typhoons in history, with wind speeds reaching 195 miles an hour, and the deadliest, taking more than 6,300 lives, with many reported missing. Enormous storm surges were triggered on many Filipino islands, with lots reaching nearly 20 feet high and causing widespread flooding.
Haiyan brought storm surge as high as trees, leveling towns and villages.
The typhoon even caused a dangerous oil spill, decimating the wildlife population as well. The damage cost almost $3 billion, with millions raised by international relief agencies and charities.
The infrastructure wiped out. This was the real deal in terms of epic catastrophes.
Number 4, the Gorka Earthquake.
We could just hear the scream all over the places, people just trying to run out.
Close to 9,000 people died when a 7.8 magnitude earthquake, followed by many more high-intensity aftershocks, hit Nepal in April 2015. Tremors were also felt in nearby India, but the vast majority of the deaths were in Nepal. Over 20,000 were injured as buildings collapsed and landslides destroyed roads. And not only were 3.5 million people made homeless, but many of Nepal's major monuments and heritage sites were destroyed as well.
In the capital city, Kathmandu, 75% of the buildings have been destroyed, leaving tens of thousands of Nepalese homeless.
Nearby on Mount Everest, a deadly avalanche took 22 lives. The disaster has led more research to be done on the fault line beneath the Himalayas so that future earthquakes can be better understood and prepared for.
And hopefully there will be some big changes during the rebuilding because large earthquakes are still locked up, waiting to happen just a little farther west down that deadly fault line.
Number 3, the 2010 Russian heatwave and wildfires. The entire northern hemisphere, including the US, Canada, Europe, Russia, China, and Japan, was racked by an intense heat wave during an excruciatingly long summer in 2010. But Russia was one of the worst hit, with extreme heat causing in excess of 55,000 deaths in that country alone.
And the resulting wildfires burning around Moscow are still clouding the capital in acrid smog. Surgical masks are now a common sight, as locals and tourists try to protect themselves from the cocktail of toxic particles.
Record-breaking temperatures ravaged major Russian cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, with Volgograd seeing the highest temperatures at 106 degrees Fahrenheit in August.
More than 700 separate fires are raging across the country, covering an area of more than 125,000 hectares.
It's impossible, even for a fireman to put out a blaze like that.
Along with the heat putting many people in the hospital, it also triggered a drought and then wildfires across western Russia.
The blazes spread quickly with little warning, leaving under-resourced fire crews struggling to cope.
The fires cost an additional 54 lives and destroyed 740,000 acres of land. Number 2, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. The strongest recorded earthquake to ever hit Japan was a 9.1 magnitude tremor that began just off the coast of Honshu, close to the city of Sendai in 2011.
The quake was the strongest Japan had seen for 1,000 years, even bigger than the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923. It was so powerful that Japan's coastline moved 8 feet to the east and sank 3 feet down.
Categorized as being violent in intensity, almost 16,000 people lost their lives. In addition to the major quake, there were 2 moderate foreshocks and thousands of aftershocks, many of them with a magnitude over 7, making them all major tremors in their own right.
As the quake rumbled across the country, school children ran in fear. Shocked supermarket shoppers tried to stay on their feet. Airport travelers dodged falling debris.
But the worst was yet to come. The subsequent tsunami struck the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, causing major reactor meltdowns in what became one of the worst nuclear disasters in history.
Seismic event turns into nuclear catastrophe.
Some parts of Japan are still uninhabitable. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, the Haiti Earthquake. One of the most damaging earthquakes in living memory. The 2010 Haiti earthquake led to an outpouring of support and relief from the entire world.
In these difficult hours, America stands united. We stand united with the people of Haiti, who have shown such incredible resilience, and we will help them to recover and to rebuild.
With a magnitude of 7, the quake was shallow and inland, only a short distance away from the country's capital, Port-au-Prince, and many other major settlements. Strong aftershocks followed, and Haiti's already struggling infrastructure was almost entirely destroyed, which made evacuation and relief incredibly difficult.
Shoddy construction in this impoverished nation meant buildings toppled to the ground. A hospital was flattened. Even the presidential palace couldn't withstand the force.
The final death toll isn't known. Conservative estimates put it at roughly 100,000 people, while the highest figures exceed 300,000. Haiti's poverty meant the country was not prepared for a disaster of this scale, leading to a tragedy of unimaginable proportions.
One of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, left in ruins. And a decade later, many are still haunted by the tragedy.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.